Bro, I don't even think I got your name. Like, when I think back to that night in the bar on K Road, which was 20 years ago, I don't think we ever got that far. And technically, I shouldn't really be saying when I think back to that night, because when we met at the bar, the sun was definitely shining. Because back then, you could drink at bars and clubs until dawn and beyond. God knows I did. The horror. So anyway, when I think back to that morning in the bar on K Road 20 years ago with you and me and all the other vampires who were still going hard from the night before, having one last drink before we all went home and did something or someone, I don't think we ever got as far as, what's your name? Obviously, though, we got to talking at some stage, even if I can hardly remember a single thing we said to each other. I do remember you said you were Māori. I do remember you were short. Like, I'm 6'2" and you maybe barely came up to my shoulder. I do remember you had fair skin, some freckles. I do remember you were wearing some sort of vest that the fashion critical part of me was absolutely not into. But I also remember that I liked your energy, which must be why I asked you to come home with me. I don't remember the two of us getting into a taxi to go back to my flat, but I sure as hell know we wouldn't have walked. There's one thing I didn't tell you that morning because it was still raw, painful, and why I was still drinking that morning. My partner had left me. I'd returned to Auckland at the start of that year, and after spending some time with my family in my hometown. My partner had a delicious chicken dinner waiting for me. Chicken was, and still is, my favorite. But right after dessert, he told me that he'd been sleeping with someone else while I was away. And later that night, he went to stay with that someone else, leaving me alone in our flat with a chicken carcass and a churning stomach. I felt like shit. I felt unlovable. I felt unwanted. I felt like I was destined from that moment on to remain untouched by human hand. To be fair, things had not been great between us for some time. We didn't really connect physically. Our career paths were somewhat divergent. These days, I wryly call it my 3-month relationship that lasted 7 years. Because we should have gone our separate ways after those first 3 months. It's very tempting to make him the baddie in all of this, but not so long ago, I came across some of my old diaries from our time together. And after reading them, I have to admit that sometimes my middle names could easily have been High and Maintenance. Case in point, when he scored a big job in another city, instead of being happy for him, I was distraught at the thought that he was going to be away from me. I could only see how it was going to impact me as opposed to how it was going to benefit him. But you didn't know any of that, bro, because I didn't tell you. Instead, we just went up into my lounge when we got to my place and we played some of my CDs. Yes, CDs, because that's how long ago this story happened. I remember the lounge floor covered in random CDs. Back then it would have been something like Moshiba or Moloko or Dimitri from Paris. I kept asking you what you wanted to play, but you insisted we listen to whatever I wanted to listen to, which took me aback because I had been so used to only listening to the music my partner liked. You sang a bit. At one point, I remember we were slow dancing to something. Now I come to think about it, maybe you were a little bit taller than shoulder height, but just a smidge. Anyway, at some stage, you crashed out on a squab on the floor. Maybe I crashed out too, I don't remember. But when you woke up, I'll never forget what you did. You sucked my distress out of me. And you sucked my distress out of me by showing me what a good lover looks like. An attentive lover, a giving lover, a considerate lover. You want me to talk about an epiphany, about a moment of sudden and great revelation? Then I need to talk about the way you sucked all of that distress out of me and how you somehow gave me back to myself in that moment, showed me how it could be, how it should be with another man. Because that morning, having sex on the floor of the lounge, you made it all about me. Almost like you knew that was exactly what I needed in that moment. And you helped me realize exactly how low my self-esteem must have been to stay in my relationship for as long as I did, but more so, how I would never do that again. And I haven't. We never saw each other again after that morning, didn't exchange numbers or anything like that. But the effect you had on me, it was profound. So, bro, if you're somehow randomly at this black and bright event tonight, listening to this story, if somehow you recognize yourself, or maybe even recognize me, I just have one thing to say to you, bro. Something I've been waiting to say to you for 20 years. Thank you.